Hi, everybody. Dominic Rubino here for Profit Tool Belt. We are in the Find and Fix Your 8 Profit Leaks course, and we're on week number 8, or profit leak number 8, which is when you've got the wrong customer and wrong job, the leaks in there. Now, you might be laughing, Dom, how can customers be a profit leak? Or you might be going, oh yeah, I know exactly how customers are a profit leak. So we're going to get into that today. Got some great tools for you, some tips, some places to look inside your business, places that initially look tiny, but I'm going to show you how they can get really, really big, really, really fast. And an example, a real case study we're going to get into today. And that case study shows you how what is an overlooked profit leak is actually a $23,000 problem for the guy in the case study. And he'd been having that problem for 4 years. It's almost $100,000 he'd lost over 4 years in that problem. So anyways, we're going to get into many profit leaks like that. But these are the things that we as business owners have to go and pick away at, right? I mean, it's easy to ignore them. That's the problem. And it's easy to get busy during the day. That's the problem, because days get busy, schedules get filled. Right now, you're probably looking at your cell phone thinking, I've got to get that call. Don't do it. Nope. Just give me the time for this course so that I can show you where the profit leaks are in your business inside just this one section. Okay. Hopefully you've got your executive team around you, the other leaders on the team, your finance person, maybe your operations person. You're all taking notes. You've got your pen and paper handy. If they're not able to make it here, please make sure that they watch the video, download the cheat sheets and the checklists and the forms so that you can all take advantage of it. And do yourself a favor. Set an extra meeting with your team just to talk about what you've learned in this session and how you're going to put it in place in the company. Of course, not all profit leaks are created equally. You're not going to find $100,000 looking under one rock. You're going to find $1,000 here and $500 there, but those numbers add up. And that's why these profit leaks are so important. All right, so let's get into it. Big day here, wrong customer and wrong job leaks. I'm going to share screen with you. Right here, and I've got my screen down there today. There we go. So we're going to talk about how to increase profits to your contracting business. Of course, today we're looking at the wrong customer and wrong job leaks. So as I like to do all the time, we're going to start with a self-assessment. So in your book, with your pen and paper, please have a look, or please write down these answers as we go through it and just assess where you are yourself. Do we know our ideal client, our perfect customer on paper? We're actually going to dig into that today. But do you know your perfect customer right now on paper, right? There's a couple of different ways we're going to measure what an ideal client looks like. But do you know right now who your perfect client is? And do you also know who your nightmare clients are? And it's easy to laugh and think about, oh, it's the Joneses, it's the Smiths, it's the such and such general contractor, or it's any job in that part of town, or way over there. That's part of the answer. But putting a simple system together for yourself and for your team and the company makes it a lot easier for you to manage this going forward. So the question is, do you and your company really know your ideal perfect customer on paper? We're going to get into that. Another thing, ask yourself this around the table. Do you have a heat map? Do you have a heat map? Now, a heat map is a tool I'm going to share with you today. If you've never seen one before, it'll be pretty revealing. And it's an exercise. It's a really good exercise to do in your company because it's going to tell you an incredible amount about how the work you do gets done and where the bottlenecks are, right? So if you do have a heat map, you already know what I'm talking about. If you've ever listened to the podcasts, you'll have heard me talk about the heat map, but today we're going to dig into it in a little more detail, and I'm going to show you how to use it to plug profit leaks in your business. So ask yourself, do we have a heat map? Do we? And are we sticking to it? So those are two questions inside one. See how it's sneaky there? And then the next one is, I got caught on a deal. You know, you take a deal and you realize afterwards that it turned into a bit of a disaster. And the reasons were X, Y, and Z, whatever those reasons are, right? They're different for every job, for every trade, for every situation. But knowing what those signals are is the same thing when you talk to your daughter about dating this guy and there's red flags going off in your mind. You're like, don't date that guy because X, Y, and Z. Well, for you, don't take those jobs anymore, okay? Anyway, and a note here, go back and review your estimating, the estimating module that we already did here, and look at your bid yes, no rule sheet. Now, hopefully you and your team have completed the bid yes, no rule sheet, so you know which jobs to even consider. You know, are they worth your time? Do they qualify for you to work with them? Not the other way around. We're not begging for work. Right now is the greatest time ever to be in business. We are so busy in the construction trades, you can literally pick and choose the work you want. So you don't have to work for everybody. That's why the bid, yes, no rule sheet exists. And you need to use that to make sure you're only going after the best jobs. Okay, well, let's move on from that. So there's the self-assessment. If you need to at any time, stop the video, pause the video so you and your team can talk about things, discuss, argue, whatever you guys like to do, but stop for a moment if you need to. I might be talking a little bit too fast for you. That's okay. Just pause it. Consider what I'm talking about. Think about where that might apply in your company. If I've said something that you don't think applies to you or your business or your company, take a step back again and think, what's Dom really saying here? How could that apply to us? So don't just let it go, because every single profit leak here has a number behind it. And that number is a number you should be taking home to your family, right? Any profit leak inside the business that we're not plugging is really critical, because that's money you're not taking as the owner, and you've worked long and hard. You've stuck your neck out. You've got your house on the line. You're missing events with your family. You're burning the candle at both ends. It's time for you to get the rewards for taking the risk. So all of these leaks are important. So don't let me just blow past it. If you think I'm going too fast, just pause the video, do the side work that you need to do as a team, and then come on back, okay? All right. Here's where to look for some of those leaks, and we're gonna get into this even a little bit more. This is a primer, an intro to tell you where we're gonna look, but this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna learn about my ideal client from an A, B, C, and D perspective. So I'm gonna show you how to grade your clients. You've got A clients, and I think you'll be surprised at how tough it is to be an A client. What you currently call an A client might not be. They might be a B or a C client, which, by the way, is a really good assumption to go into that exercise with. So we're going to do that. We're going to look at, I know my ideal client, and I can break them up into A, B, C, and D. And I've got a rule set for you here, a simple system for that. I'm going to show you how to fire the Ds and promote the Bs and Cs. Do I know our perfect size and type of job? Not all jobs are created equally. There's some jobs it's just not worth your time and effort going to. Now, there are times when it gets is political. You've got to take the small jobs so that general contractor gives you the big jobs too. But I'd prefer if you were on the job site and a little job got tacked on. That's much better for you. But you do have to play it right and play it smart to get the bigger jobs. But do you know what your perfect size and type of job is? And if you don't, we're going to talk about that today. There's the heat map again, building and using our heat map. And are you, my friend, and your team willing to say no to a deal? Because a bad deal ain't going to get better once you sign a contract. It gets worse. Somebody who's giving you red flags as a customer, somebody who's got a job site that's tough to get to, tough to access, tough to work on, it's only going to get worse. And the real things that are at play in those situations is you might also lose staff in those situations. And right now, it is incredibly tough to find and keep good people. And that's a real cost. If you lost one of your people right now, and it took you 2 weeks to replace them, you might say, well, I can eat that, 2 weeks of cash flow, we can do that, find somebody else, even for a laborer. What's it going to cost you to train up a new laborer? So you've got the 2 weeks to find them. Then you got to train them up for another 2-3 weeks before they're running at full energy and speed. And then you put them back on another bad job site and they leave. It's just a constant wheel of you rehiring people that you should have just hired once. So the impact of a bad customer, the impact of the wrong customer and the wrong job, it echoes. Does that make sense? It echoes throughout the company. So that's why we have this subject here. All right, and the coaching question that I love to ask. Go to your books, please, and with your pen and paper, write down the following question. I'll ask the question, then I'll stop for a second. And at that point, I'd like you to pause the video so that you can answer this question as well. The question is, what is the one thing that if you fixed it would solve the problems you keep having in this customer section of your business? So go ahead and pause the video right now. Consider that question. And then when you're ready, come on back. I gotta take a drink. All right, welcome back. I got a drink. Oops, we're on the wrong slide there. As you know, that's the ending slide. I'll stop sharing screen for a second so that I can share a different screen with you. And that screen is this one here. Wrong customer, wrong job leak. This is our cheat sheet and our checklist. Okay, I'm hoping you can see this. Let's make it just a little bit bigger. I'm blind lately. It's so bad. Oh, it's nice. It's so big, the font. Okay, so wrong customer, wrong job leaks. Remember, this is yours to print out. It's available for you on the shared drive where you get all the rest of your course material. So go ahead and print it off. Keep it on your hard drive. Share it with your team. I don't care if you put your own branding on it, your own company info on it. Do it. That's what you paid for. Take advantage of this stuff and don't let it just die after you watch this video. Use it in the company. If the answers are here, and you'll be able to put it in place as long as you go back and revisit it and keep it alive. Okay. So you might be wondering, how customers can be a profit leak. And I've told this story before about this paint contract where the lady only wanted me to work between 9 and 2:30 and always wanted it to look like we were never actually working on her house. She lived in a dream world, serious dream world. You've got these clients too. And then her pets were just her pets were a part of her dream world too, to her credit. She was very consistent. Anyways, you probably have stories like this of your own, but I have to look at myself. The personal responsibility for all of this starts with me as the business owner. It's not her fault. She's probably the same today as she was when I painted her house. It's not her fault. If I want the right clients, I have to get the right clients. And I have to remember this. It's a very important thing. My clients don't know how to have their house painted. They're not an expert in having their house painted. And whatever trade you do, enter it there, right? They don't know how to have their roof redone. They don't know how to have their basement mold remediation done. They don't know how to have their termites removed. You know how to do that. And so it's your job, my job, to teach them how to have mold remediation done in your home. It's my job to show you how tenant improvement projects are done. I have to take that responsibility. It's when I understand that I have the responsibility that this ship starts to turn really fast. Business changes when I take personal responsibility. So you'll see me talking about that throughout this particular chapter and with everything we do. That's just the language of success. The most successful people realize that they are in control, not the world pushing them around. They're in control. And that's a good place to be. So if you have customers who are outside of your specialty, let's start there. They might be eating into your time, your profits, or your soul. As I said here, that's the worst part. You can never get your soul back. That leaves a little bit of a time, and it takes a long time to bring it back. Make a list of clients or jobs that you should not have done business with. Now you see a hyperlink here. In the real world, not during this recording, you can click that and go to the worksheet. What we're going to do today is I'm going to go to the worksheet last. It'll be the last document I share with you. So you'll see what I mean, and we'll walk through the example. But while you have this, you can go ahead and click on that. It doesn't work on the paper version. You knew that, right? But make a list of the clients or jobs you should not have done business with. And then write down why. Why should you not have done work with that person? And now go back and think about, estimate, right? We're all good at estimating here. Estimate how much time or money you lost, or what was the impact to the company of that wrong client. It can be pretty heavy, right? And then talk about it with your team, and then go back again to the bid yes no score sheet that we made and see if you need to update that again for your rules, right? Rules are simple systems. Very simple rules work really, really well. They're simple systems. And then make changes as needed, right? The key to putting systems in place is that we put the system in place and we use the system. While we're using the system, as long as it continues to work, we'll continue to use the system. If it doesn't work, we change the system, right? I often say that my business systems are written in sand. So I know what they are and they're written out. But when new information comes in, when a wave washes over them and wipes it out, we're going to rewrite the system. I'm okay with changing the system as long as it makes sense. We're not going to change the system because of one client or one situation. We're going to take a higher level view of the business owner. We're going to look at it and say, does it make sense to change the system? And if it does, I'll change that system. I can't ignore the market. I can't ignore what's happening. I can't ignore the fact that my guys are stuck behind a train every day when we work in that part of town. That train ain't moving. I mean, literally, the tracks aren't moving. And when you're sitting behind it, you feel like it ain't moving. So if that's the situation, in that case, it's a condition, change the way you market. Don't go to that part of town. Or have a simple system that says to your guys, we never take Broadway, because Broadway always gets stuck behind the train. We always go loop around on 4th and we get in there, but we never get stuck behind the train. Whatever works in your city or town. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about the perfect customer on paper now. So I've created a grid for you. I think the best thing to do here is for you to recreate this grid. But you're going to be surprised at what I call an A client, a B client, a C client, and a D client. And the beautiful part about the D clients is those are the ones I want you to refer to your best competitor. And when I say best competitor, you know which competitor I mean, the one who bugs you the most. You're going to give your D clients and your D prospects your competitor's name. Hopefully your competitor picks up all this extra business you're handing them, and you're very happy about that. D clients are a profit leak from the word go. You don't even want them. You don't want to deal with them. At best, if you do get stuck talking to them, refer them off to somebody else, but don't touch them. Sometimes the best deal is a deal you never did at all. And I think we've all been in business long enough. Just by the fact that you got on this training means that you've been around long enough to understand that statement. Sometimes the best deal is a deal we never did at all, right? So let's do this exercise right now. If you need to, turn this off or pause it and do the exercise around the table. But let me walk you through it, and then we'll give you another opportunity to take a break. If you're already ahead of me and you've taken a break, we're just going to walk through this, okay? So in this example of A, B, and C type of clients, we're grading them like a school grade, right? I want you to create your own chart. So feel free to do that. Create your own chart from here. But here's a couple of rules to start you off. You may have to change the language to suit your industry, right? It doesn't work for every single industry, but the idea is the same. That left-hand column is where you're going to define the different components, the different pieces that make up the ideal client. So what I want you to do at the end of this is I want you to promote the C clients. We're going to show them how to become B and A clients, and we're going to give these Ds away. So here's what, let me define what an A client is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define an A client, and we're going to talk about this column A against this column here at the same time, okay? So for me and for you, I want you to start thinking about an A client, a perfect client, in a very different way. An A client pays in full and they don't negotiate at all. How nice is that? When do they pay? They pay in advance by direct deposit. Now, I'm not saying they pay in cash. There are some markets that have certain other economic things going on in their city where there's a lot of cash floating around, and some of that cash gets used for construction projects. But cash often causes problems for us in construction because we can't respend it. I had a client many years ago who got paid a lot of cash for a job he did in construction. And he's like, Dom, I don't know where to spend this. He goes, I just use it for gas. He goes, but that's kind of a hassle because I just want to swipe like everybody else. He goes, but I have to go in and I have to pay with cash. Anyway, so you probably know what I'm talking about without me saying it. But cash deals can be dangerous deals because you can't necessarily use the cash. So that's why I say here in advance, direct deposit, right? You put your own definitions in there, but an A client pays in full with no negotiating. That's one of the first rules for me. And the second one is they pay in advance, 100% in advance, and the cash is in my account. The money is in my account. How's that for a reframe of what a perfect client is, right? The job type falls within our specialty. Sorry, the location on our heat map, which we'll talk about, the location is zone 1. You probably figured out what zone 1 is already. It's that core zone that we're good at getting to. We know how to get to. We're set up to go to. The material to labor ratio. So for a lot of you, this makes sense. For some of you, it doesn't. For those of you who think about things in a material to labor ratio, you'll understand this, but fill that in for your company example. For those of you who are in the finished wood trades, cabinetry, furniture making, architecture, woodwork, and things like that, you might be thinking about this in terms of supply only versus supply and install. In some markets, getting installers is very difficult, and installers adds another layer of complexity. You might just want to be the company that supplies and never does install. So think about that. What's your ideal situation? The perfect situation becomes an A, and the least perfect situation becomes a D. Okay? So change this box to suit your particular trade or your industry the way you want. What's the material to labor ratio? For those of you in fire services, it might be a style of building. For those of you in pest control, it might be a type of pest. For those of you in painting, it might be something. So just use your own example there, okay? Site access. Is the site access easy? You can back your truck up without worrying about hitting anything. There's no parking police coming around giving you tickets. Huge driveway. You can unload wherever you want. Everybody can park, or they can get there by transit, by public transit if they want. Like, it's just easy to get to the site. Everything's easy. None of it's a headache. Well, that's an A client in an A location, which goes back to our heat map, right? Average job size. So for me, an A client is at or above our normal level. So I don't need it to be astronomical. I just want it to be a good, solid, average job size job. That's all. That's an A client. Average time on the job site. It's at or above our normal level. For some of you, having a job that goes too long on one job site impacts cash flow, right? Because you're now dealing with deposits and progress payments. And sometimes those deposits is how you're managing the payment, the labor payment of your guys. So if you've got a job that goes too long and the progress payments don't catch up with your cash flow, you might find yourself in a shortfall when it comes time for payroll, right? That would make sense to a lot of you. So average time on job site it's a real consideration for a lot of you in trades for how this works. I do have a suggestion for you if that happens. You can set up in your agreement, if you know you're, for instance, going to be on a job site longer than your normal level, you can say to let's say it's a residential homeowner situation, you can say to the residential homeowner, look, these are our progress payments, but every 10 days, I'm going to ask for a draw of this so that we can pay for labor, right? And so you have that pre-set up with them in advance. It's always nice in advance. And when they agree to something like that, you've got your ideal client. It's not their fault if they don't pay it if you didn't ask. That's why the responsibility lies with me, right? Service contracts. If there's service contracts involved in your business, yes. And an A client takes our service contract at our premium level. And so that goes on. You can add as many criteria as you want to this left-hand page. And the more you do, the better it is, right? Because you've still got 1, 2, 3 other types of accounts that you could get, right? So then B is a little bit less than that. C is less than B, and D is the worst. So do you see how this is starting to come together? I do want to go through B as an example to show you the difference between an A client and a B client. Let's just look at it, okay? So how they pay. We know what an A client looks like, but a B client, they negotiate a little bit and they do the standard 10% deposit, on-time progress payments, no holdback. You might be, and this is very common, by the way, when I start working, sometimes I work one-on-one with customers as well. When I work one-on-one with customers, they're saying, no, that's an A client. No, there is better. You can have better. You can have an in full, no negotiating client. What you're calling A isn't as good as it can get. So you have an opportunity here, right? On our terms, using credit card, when and how they pay, because I have to pay credit card processing fees, right? So that cuts into profits a little bit. Now, you always take the payment. Don't get caught figuring out, oh, well, if we use Visa versus cash, just take the payment. It's not worth mucking around. Just take the payment. But it is better if they pay in advance, direct deposit versus credit card, because on a credit card, I have to pay an astronomical interest rate to the credit card company, right? Location starts to expand to zone 1 or 2. You can see here that a C client is anywhere in zones 1 to 3. So it might be in a good location, but a bad account for other reasons. The job types starts to spread a little bit. They want our specialty, but they have some conditions. Now there's site conditions, there's access conditions, there's customer conditions. There's something on there that we have to take into consideration that's outside of our norm, right? It would be great if we just showed up to an empty field and we poured a slab of concrete. That's not how it works all the time, right? That would be an A client, right? Show up to the field, we paid you already, just pour the slab of concrete and never talk to us again. The money's in your bank account. How do I get more of those clients? Anything less than that is a B, C, or D, right? So keep looking at this. And I would suggest that this chart is one meeting with you and the people on your leadership team in your company where you really lay out and really understand amongst yourselves what the perfect kind of client is for you, okay? Remember, the end action item that I'm looking for you is that anybody that's in the D category, just get rid of them. It's not going to get better. They should not be your client. They are somebody else's A client, by the way. There's another company out there that's dying to have what you call a D. But you've been at this for a long time. You've earned your stripes. You don't have to take those clients anymore. So try to get out of there, okay? All right, hopefully that makes sense. Take notes, really dig into this one with your team or on your own. If you're just on this as a solo business owner, that's even easier. Go for a coffee, create this chart and scribble down what you need, and then help it come to life inside the company. It's a great way to grow and grow smart. There's leaks that can be had, I need to fix this, on how to manage a job itself. Even if you've done everything right in marketing and sales to bring on a new client, you might have leaks on how you actually manage a project. So remember, we're inside the ideal, or we're inside the wrong customer, wrong job leak. We could be running a good job wrong, right? We could be running a good job wrong. And so we have to think about how we manage a job. Do we have leaks there? So the exercise here that I'm asking you to do is to pause for a moment, hit pause on this recording and write down 3 frustrations that you have. The three most common frustrations that you have during the project management of the work you do. Go ahead and write those down now. The answer for how to find the profit leaks is inside that list of 3 things, right? So please don't roll past this one thinking, oh, we'll come back to it later. It's okay to stop the video. That's why it's a video, right? Just like when the cell phone rings, you don't have to answer it. It's just a request from somebody to talk to you. But if it's not a good time for you, call them later or send them a text, right? Same thing here. You don't have to keep going. You can pause and fill in this part. It might be the best use of your time and your team's time right now to do that. Here's how to fix the profit leaks you have in project management in 4 easy steps. There are 4 easy steps. Here they are. Create your project management flowchart. How many of you are sick of me talking about flowcharts? How many of you know I'm not going to stop talking about flowcharts? How many of you realize we're only going to session 9 anyway, so it's going to stop at some point? But flowcharts don't go away. They're beautiful for a couple of reasons. And I've said this before, but it is worth repeating. A flowchart mixes the artistic and logical side of our brain. Flowcharts work because they work on images, which is how people from multiple languages get through an airport safely and know where to pick up their luggage. That's based on a flowchart. It's just a simple image that says what to do next, right? So that's what I want you to create as a simple system in your company. It's a series of little bubbles that says do step 1, do step 2, do step 3. When you find that you've got a gap between step 1 and step 2, you just added a step in the between. And so I had a really great client. It was a couple. And the owner of that company, the husband, said to me once, Dom, you know what I realized is that the most important part of the flowchart is the gaps in between. Really wisely said. Smart, smart, smart. So here's what I want you to do. Create your project management flowchart. How does a perfect project management process look to you in your industry, the way you do things? Create that on paper. Write the steps as an easy to read flowchart. Think about the perfect flow, the perfect jobs. Now take those 3 frustrations that are up there on the sheet and draw an arrow on your flowchart to where those frustrations are. Now, maybe you're sitting at the table with the other leaders in your company and this is what you're going to talk about. That's where we think the frustrations are. It's consistently here between step 3 and 4, whatever your numbers are, right? Now, as the owner, I'd like you to facilitate this with your team. Come up with ideas for places to fix this problem before they occur. So just because the problem is between step 3 and 4 does not mean that's where just because the frustration, I apologize, just because the frustrations between step 3 and 4 doesn't mean that's where the problem occurred. You might have to go way up the flowchart to figure out where the problem started. That is working smart. That's working on the business, not in it. If you just keep thinking about step 3 and 4, you're working in the business. If you think about the root cause, where it really started, that's working on the business. Congratulations. You're doing high value entrepreneur work right there. The next step, take action. Make changes to your flowchart you just created and have a new working system for how to fix your project management project leaks. I've got a story here that's going to show you how a very, very simple project management glitch, if you will, added up to almost $100,000 that a guy was losing over 4 years. It was 23 grand a year. So it's inside here, inside of job administration, which is part of project management. it's easy for a contractor to overlook the soft cost of job administration because we try to delegate job admin out as quickly as we can, right? We've got a bookkeeper or an administrator or somebody who's helping in the office, and we want them to do their work so we can go over here and do this other stuff with hammers and hammer drills and big tools and forklifts and stuff like that. But there's money to be lost there if we're not paying attention to everything that needs to go on, right? Everything that needs to happen. You know, I'd like you to think about your favorite sports team. Doesn't matter what sport it is, doesn't matter where they are in the world. Think about your favorite sports team. When you think about the most important players on that team, who comes to mind right away? It's the players on the field. Did you know the players on the field are only bringing to life the vision that was in the coach's head? Pretty interesting. Have you ever stopped to think what would happen if the front office staff of your favorite sports team was a disaster? If the front office staff couldn't do scheduling, couldn't do the administration, couldn't keep things in track, couldn't book flights, couldn't get meals prepared and delivered properly for the players, how would your team operate? See, we only see the players on the field, on the ice, on the court, on the rink, whatever it is, right? But the actual team that's running that sports team is the administration. That administration has to run right as well. And it's a strong administration that allows great athletes to do what they do. We never think about that, do we? We never, ever think about that. But that's what I'm asking you to do here. Think about your job administration. Think about those tasks. Try to look at the world differently than your competitors do, and you'll see other places for opportunity, which is why you're taking this really smart course on that, right? So don't overlook the soft costs of job admin. I'm going to show you this example. It's a case study. Again, you can print this off and read it at your own pace, but I want to tell you the story so you understand from my perspective some of the more important points. There's a guy named Larry. Now, those of you who know me, you already know I don't use real client names. So his name wasn't Larry. It did start with L, but it wasn't Larry. He's still alive. It still is not Larry, if that makes sense. Larry had grown this company from scratch, like a guy with his dog in a van. And when I met him, he still had the same dog. And I don't know about the van, but anyways, just a regular guy who just good on the tools, started a business, really good guy. Like, you know, when you meet people and you meet them and you think, geez, I wish that guy was my neighbor. That's Larry. He was so just nice, good guy, did what he said he was going to do, just a solid working guy, built a great company. People actually like working for him. He's just a good guy. Anyways, frustrated though. He just felt stuck. He built this business, but he just couldn't get bigger. And he wanted to get bigger because he wanted more profits, which is how he ended up talking to me. But he just couldn't understand why he was stuck, just plain stuck. Well, it turned out that the more Larry and I worked together, the more profit leaks we found. He was working hard, and it was all just running out from the sides. A leak here, a leak there, not doing this and not doing that. So he was working really hard, but as you often hear people say, he wasn't working smart. And so these were the steps he took. So he couldn't break that $1 million mark. It was really, really hard for him. He was about 900K all the time. I think before we started, he was just nudging $1 million, but he just couldn't get above it no matter what. 4 trucks. 4 trucks. One was a truck he was in, so he was in the field, and 1 office admin. So a total of 5 people, maybe 6. Just a good sized company. His take home was brutal, horrible. He was the lowest paid guy in the whole company. Anyways, one of the things in his company that frustrated him was his bookkeeper. He was very frustrated with her. And what was interesting is when I talked to her, she was very, very frustrated with him. And this was a profit leak. Now, I understand that some of you listening are laughing around the table or trying not to laugh because you might have your administrator sitting in the room and he or she is going, I see the point. I'm trying to meet the owner and the owner doesn't have time, doesn't block out the schedule. From the owners, to give the owner credit, because they're so busy. They're doing a gajillion things. It feels like the last thing I need to do is deal with paperwork, right? That's all in the past. We're moving forward. Hang on till you see the end of the story, okay? So what was happening is she was behind on invoicing because she couldn't meet with him, and he didn't want to meet with her because it was boring to him. But he was frustrated about that. But she was not getting very, very, very basic information. Now, this sounds crazy when you see it on paper, but she wasn't getting name, address, email, and phone number of the account. So she couldn't do an invoice even if she wanted to. She couldn't do the invoice for the plumbing even if she wanted to. She just didn't have that basic stuff, right? later on, I'll go on to show you, this also led to an accounts receivable, a collections problem for the company. So there's multiple layers to this one little thing. Anyways, Larry wasn't using a standard form with customer information on it. And even if he did start an account, she only knew about it by telephone conversation or by seeing where he was going that day. She didn't know who he was doing work with. And the other three guys, what they were doing work with, they were just going on dispatch, doing what they needed to do, but they weren't capturing the right information and they weren't capturing the billing properly. And he was so busy with his field work that he would only make time every 2 weeks to meet with her. So at the best she could do her job, because of the constraint Larry put on her, was that she would be 2 weeks behind in billing. 2 weeks. That's a long time. That's a long time for billing. And think about what you were doing 2 weeks from today. I mean, I don't remember, other than it's the same day of the week, 2 weeks from today. But I don't remember what I was doing 2 weeks ago. And if you came and fixed my plumbing 2 weeks ago, I would have assumed you sent me an invoice and I would have paid it. But if I didn't and you didn't invoice me, I forgot about it, because that's how life works. And so they weren't invoicing. And so customers forgot about it. And it just snowballed to hell. It was bad. Anyways, Larry's problem here, he was carrying receivables for an extra 2 weeks. So even if he got paid in 30 days, by himself, he had extended it to 45 days. Now, remember I said Larry's a plumbing company. It wasn't Larry's bank. You're not a bank. You don't have to give people 45-day terms. He was just giving people an extra 2 weeks in the best case, in the very best case. Now, usually plumbers want to be paid right away, but he was on his own just extending the terms. It was a tough situation for him, right? So anyways, for the simple math, and I did very simple math, $1,000 at 4% interest, it's going to cost you about $3 a month to carry that. It doesn't sound like a lot, right? For every $1,000 at around 4% interest, doing simple interest, not compound interest calculation, which I really should have used a compound interest calculator. But for simple math, it's going to cost you $3 to carry $1,000 inside your company for a month. But he was a it was $1 million business. So it was costing him $10,000 a year. Is that worth chasing? And just wait. Larry and I put a simple tool in place for estimating that was linked to the bookkeeping. So he wasn't using the tools he already had, which was QuickBooks. So we got T-Sheets put in there, which is a QuickBooks program. And fixing that tiny profit leak actually added up to 23 grand a year. Now, remember I said Larry was the lowest paid guy in the company already. That 23 grand was his family's money. He's supposed to take it home for his family. For all the work he did, for all the late nights, for all the pulling out his hair and wringing his hands, that was his 23 grand. And it was just being wasted. It was just going away. It didn't even go anywhere. It just went away. It actually never came in, I should say, right? But he should have, that is a simple profit leak to go fix. It just looks so small. But when you do the math and you think about the impact, by the way, not taking into account the accounts receivable impact on this, it's just so much bigger, right? So when I met Larry, he'd been in business about 13 years, but this problem had been around for 4 years. He'd been at about $1 million for 4 years. Let me change that. And so that means the actual impact, $92,000. Let's just call it 100 grand, right? It's a lot of money. What would happen in your family if you brought home an extra $23,000 this year? I want you to, and that's why we're talking about it here. So pause this video if you need to. Talk to your leadership team about what needs to change. Where are the gaps in administration? This is just job administration. No offense to the person who's job administration. We're not talking about anything sexy here. Like, it's not exciting. It's just making sure the paperwork is done, that there's no gaps, that we're not wasting extra time. And by the way, this story is a very, very common one. You may have heard me talk in the past about an electrical services company, second generation. Son took over from the dad. The dad was a super social guy, knew everybody. They'd been doing the same work for the same general contractors for years. Son took over the business. He was also a super social guy, so he went out there chit-chatting with everybody, but he also wanted to make sure he reviewed all the invoices before they went out. Now, he only got in the office every 2 weeks, and because he took so long, he would look at the invoice and go, Fred from Fred's General Contracting, we've been doing business with him for years. My dad loves that guy. Take 10% off. Sorry for sending the invoice late. So not only was he sending the invoice late, he was reducing the amount before it went out, driving his accounting staff nuts, right? So it's not just Larry. It's not just your business. It's very common. Take a deep breath. Let's deal with it, okay? So hopefully you get a big one out of that. There is a profit leak there for you in job administration. So the closing question here for you and your team is, do you have a job admin profit leak, and you'll find it if you think about the biggest frustrations you have in job administration. For Larry, his biggest frustration was that his bookkeeper wasn't sending out the invoices. Her biggest frustration is she wasn't able to send out the invoices. Weird, eh? Okay, so let me stop sharing screen here for a second so that I can bring up another document for you. This is all in the shared drive. These are available to you to download. We've got the heat map and the worksheet. We're going to do the heat map right now. Share. And I want to talk about why and how a heat map makes you profitable. You're really just thinking about things in a very different way. You're trying to make order out of the chaos, right? Because it can seem chaotic. But what's interesting is once you plot all of your customer names on a map, things just appear out of the cloud. And that's what I want you, it's just called a heat map. It's a term that comes from marketing. It's a term you might hear, any of you who do a little bit of stuff on the internet will recognize the word heat map because they also use it for, believe it or not, how our eyes travel across the screen when we look at a website. That's a different kind of heat map. The heat map we're talking about here is our customer heat map, right? So what I want you to do is, of course, you can go back and look at what we talked about in the estimating checklist. Hopefully you picked away at this already. If not, it's a good chance to go back and review it again with your team. The question here starts with, we know how we're making money. We're making money when our guys are on the tools, when our crew is on the tools, when they're swinging the hammer or using the roller or doing whatever it is we do, in the forklift, in the backhoe. That's when we're making the money. But the question here is, are you using and do you live by your heat map? It's a simple system that stops you from doing unpaid, unbillable, frustrating, time-wasting driving around town. We don't get paid to drive, unless you're a courier company, but you wouldn't have taken this training if you were, right? To create a heat map, make a list of all the best jobs from the last 2 years and plot those addresses and locations on a map. It's super simple. You can do it on Google Maps, or you can just get a map of your city, put it on the wall and stick in pins, right? Like you see on those cop shows. Outside the zone of where your heat map is in the no man's land. But here is, for those of you who are Game of Thrones fans, you're laughing already, here's Westeros. And I plotted some fake points on there. This is a heat map for this contractor. Maybe they make swords or something. I don't know. What would you make if you were a Game of Thrones subcontractor? This heat map is showing us right here, this is the cluster of most of our best clients. We see, oh, we had a good client out here. We had one client way out there. Can you imagine the travel time it takes to go way out there? This one looks like it's in a national park, for God's sake. Like, why are you going out that far? You might say, well, Dom, it's a premium job. We got paid a lot. How much time did it take to sell and service that account? You know, there's a number that we don't often talk about in trades. It's used a lot in commodities businesses. I know some weird stuff. It's used a lot in commodities businesses, and it's called cost to serve. It's a number you should probably think about. What's our cost to serve an account? So if all you knew was the definition that there's a cost to service an account, what do you think the cost to serve this one up here on the top right? Can you see my mouse circling that? Or the cursor circling that one? What's the cost to serve an account right here next to our office? Just driving time alone is a cost. Gas, insurance. The fact that we might be annoying our good staff who have to drive way out here, and they might be thinking, yeah, I'm going to go get another job. Now the cost to serve goes way up because we have to replace staff over time, right? So think about your heat map and the impact that it can have on your business. There is so much meat on this bone, it's not even funny. A ton of profit leaks just inside driving in your business, right? So here's the quick action. Ask your administrator to pull a report of last 2 years' clients and then have them make a chart that looks like this. And I've set out an example chart here, right? Like the Smith job, the Jones job, the Chan job, whatever, university, hospital, whatever you do for your business. And then the revenues and the profits and the street address, but also put notes there. And you'll see in the notes here, I said on the Smith job, there were toll bridges. We need to add those tolls to the estimate. It's only $3 every way or $7 every way, but it adds up. That's $14 a day or $9 a day, whatever it is, right? Going back and forth. Did you charge for that in your estimate? That might not be your perfect client. Their perfect provider, their perfect subcontractor or contractor might be somebody on the other side of that toll bridge or toll highway. Why does it have to be you? And if it is you, charge, that's just part of the cost of doing business, but the client needs to pay that cost, not you, right? University museum, if you're doing, TIs or corporate work, bidding on federal projects and things like that. Brutal site access, drive time. Have you ever had those jobs where it's impossible site access? What you learned is that with that general contractor, they really never have the on-site elevator figured out, and it's always a problem. It's always going to be a problem. That's not going to change. So you learn that when you do your heat map and you take those notes, right? Turn that info into a heat map and then start to use the heat map when you do your estimating and costing calculations. So the other thing I want you to do is split your city up into zones, if that's possible. Your city, your region, your territory, whatever you're doing. Zone 1, standard pricing. Zone 2, you add a little bit extra, right? For tolls, for bridges, for getting stuck behind trains, for, do you have that neighborhood where only one road services it? It's a huge neighborhood. There's only one road to get in and out. And so it's always bottlenecked, especially at drive times. It's just crazy. So that one's got a bit extra. And zone 3, you have to go through those bottlenecks and then you got to drive another 3 hours to get to it. So you should add a little bit extra to that job as well. Now, some of you are saying, but Dom, you don't understand. And you're right, I don't understand. But you're saying it, Dom, I don't understand. Dom, you don't understand. We have to bid to win. I get it. I just want you to be aware that when you bid to win a job in zone 3, that you're aware on paper that you're taking a hit on travel time. As long as you're okay with it, it's okay. It's not okay if you just do it blindly. I just want you to be aware. As long as you're aware, then you've got full control, right? You make the decisions to take the jobs you want. I'm not telling you which jobs to say no to. I just want you to be aware, hey, we're losing money on travel on this job. And then what happens over time is you start to realize that too, and we eventually get to the same place. All right, here's an example. Think about this. How much does it cost you to have one technician in one vehicle stuck behind a train for 30 minutes? Now, some of you have already left this training in your mind because you're thinking, oh my God, one of my guys is stuck in traffic behind a train right now, and it's driving me nuts, because you're paying for that time. Those little profit leaks add up. That 30 minutes for that guy's hourly rate, let's say his hourly rate is $30, that's $15 you're spending for him to watch the side of a graffitied train. Put your heat map on the wall. Think about it when you put your final price together, okay? So am I annoying some of you today? I would apologize, except that if I'm in your head and I'm making you think about these things differently, then we're actually doing the right thing. Let me share with you the worksheet, and then we'll start to wrap things up, okay? So bring up the worksheet. Wrong customer, wrong job worksheet. Here we go. So again, this is something that you have in the shared drive. You're able to download this. Hopefully you have it in front of you now so you can take notes. Feel free to share this, obviously, within your company where you start thinking about the wrong customer and wrong job. You want to have a meeting with your team to talk about this, okay? Use this information to go back again and update your bid yes, no score sheet when we were talking about that inside estimating leaks, which was module number 1. And then make sure you're asking your team to identify the root cause of these wrong customer, wrong job issues. Have you ever had situations like this? Now we'll use a residential renovation contractor as an example, but these examples, you've got them in your industry too. Doesn't matter what you do. But if you're a residential person, you deal with residentials. Have you ever had this? The homeowner is talking to your guys while they're trying to work. They ask a million questions, or their kid comes in, picks up all your tools and says, what does this do? What does this do? Right? They question everything you're doing. They want you to do all the cutting outside, even though you've got dust suppression equipment, you've got Festool, things like that. They ask you to take your work boots off in the house. That's actually a good one. It'll help you sell more deals. And you can overcome that with booties. Just tell your guys they have to wear booties in the house or lay down carpeting, etc. They worry about their pets getting out or getting scared by your tools. And so they give you these weird restrictions on times or site access, even though you need to be there at certain times and have site access. Or they hate the smell of paint, adhesive, or things you need to use. And so when you guys start using them, the homeowner comes in and says, oh, I know you're painting, but can you stop that? Because we're home. Well, when the heck am I going to do it? I have to paint. It's actually low VOC and it has to be done, right? It could be adhesives. It could be anything else you need to use. But some of those things do have smells homeowners aren't used to, right? And again, this applies whether you do commercial work, service work, etc. But when you sit with your team to complete this worksheet, the first thing I'd like you to remind them to do is forget about the homeowner. So don't start talking about crazy Mrs. Jones or crazy Mr. Chan. It's easy to do that. It's kind of fun, lets off some steam, but that's not the point of this exercise. Mrs. Jones, Mr. Chan, they're just doing their thing. You got them as a client. What do we have to do as a company to set that account up, to set that job up for a win, not a fail? That's the question we have here. So forget about the Joneses and the Chanses, if that's their name, right? The big question is this: what can we do? What can we do? Because we have control. What can we do to make sure these problems don't come up in future jobs? So start looking for the root cause of the problems. So in this situation here, I've got an example. You can avoid those problems. Actually, remember the flow chart we talked about? If I've got this job constraint or frustration, the actual fix is not there at the job. I mean, you have to take care of the customer if it comes up, but you need to go back and fix your marketing and your sales and your project management steps, and that problem will go away. If the expectations are clearly laid out for the client, they already knew that you're going to be using smelly paints and adhesives and things like that, right? So I even put a script in here for you. Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, when we renovate your bathroom, we're going to need to turn off the power and the water so we can remove the old tile, drywall, and fixtures. As long as my crew can work straight through the day, I think we can turn that piece around in 8 hours. If we need an extra day, we'll turn the water and power on before we leave, but we'll need to turn it off again the next day. Now remember, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner in this case, they want this job done. They're already saying yes to the job, right? So this is after they've said yes. Now we're in the project management phase of the selling. That makes sense to you. I'm sure it does. So now we're just talking about what we need. So what we need is asking them, have you planned where you're going to take the dog and the cats and your 3-year-old toddler on Thursday and maybe even Friday of next week so the house can be empty by 8 a.m.? And stop talking and wait for them to answer. You need to get them to answer the question. But now you've solved the problem. You don't have a 3-year-old toddler coming in, holding up your tools and dropping them on the Italian tile floor. And you don't have dogs and cats, running through the work you're trying to do. They're out of the way. And the critical constraint you were talking about with the Jones and the Chans family is the fact that it was so hard to work there because they were on the job site. Remove the issue. Go back up in your own flow chart and figure out where the constraint happens. I'm pretty sure that one's starting to make a lot of sense to you. And you can see how you can fix those profit leaks that come about because, here's a classic. Hey, while your workmen are here, can they just help me bring in a dishwasher that's been in our garage for a couple of years? Can you guys just help me move this couch? Well, now you're paying to move a couch and your crew is not couch movers, right? Your guys are going to want to do it because they're probably good guys. I guarantee you they're good guys, but that's not what they're there for. So let's remove that risk. I'm not here to move a dishwasher or a fridge or a stove. Call somebody else. That's not us, right? Or we'll add it to the quote in a change order if you want, but we got to do our work so you can get your house done, okay? Work with them to find a solution. Here's the worksheet part of this that I'd like you to do with your team. Think about how to fix the wrong customer and wrong job profit leaks. So I've got a couple of blocks here. You can recreate these as you need to. This is a Word document. It's unlocked. So you can manipulate things as you need to, retype it, copy and paste it, all of those things. There's nothing held back here. Use it as you need to and duplicate it as much as you can. But ask your team what those wrong customer or job situations are, get a list, and then fill in these blocks. Situation 1, and then get everybody to fill out this part. Where or how can we avoid this situation in the future? And then have that as a discussion with your team. Make sure this part gets written in. 3 solutions for the future. That's kind of like running the profit lab exercise that I've talked about before. Is what are the solutions here? Well, these are the problems. The problems are right here. These are the solutions. And your team's going to help you come up with the solutions. Your team wants you to have solutions. You have a good team. You've got great people. You're training them on how to be better business people. How could they not be engaged in this? So get their solutions, get them on paper. So I've given you a couple of blank spots, and then just for fun, I filled one in for you. Here's an example of the wrong customer or job situation. The Smiths. There's always the Smith job, right? Anyways, here's the example of the Smith job. The cash impact of whatever this problem was, I said 16 hours at $30 per hour of man-hour time. That's $480. And then there's 4 hours of the owner working as a project manager at $65 an hour. That's another $260. So whatever problem we had at the Smith job added up to $700, right? The time impact, 16 hours of extra on-site time. Now, you already know what that's going to do to the rest of the jobs you have on the schedule. You're 16 hours behind. You're 2 man days behind in this case, right? So this made the job go over the weekend, and the customer got even more annoyed. But you had to get it finished because your guys need to go back to another job site on the Monday. Now your guys are upset because they have to work over the weekend. You see how this is going? The other problem here is miscommunication, and then they left us a bad online review. So we did everything we could for the Smiths, and they still ended up leaving us an online review that wasn't very nice. So what are the solutions for the future? So I'm imagining people are on your team around the table, and I said, well, one thing we should do is set clear expectations during the sales and kickoff process. So set clear expectations with the Smiths. Arrange update meetings with the owner in advance, so the owner knows there's communication, right? So your scripting might be during the sales and marketing process to say, hey, Mr. Smith, we're so excited to be working with you. Just so you know, at the end of every day, we're gonna have a quick phone call or text message between the two of us talking about the status of the job. Now the Smiths know in advance that you're gonna communicate with them at the end of the day. Please, if you've made the promise, do the do. Communicate with them at the end of the day, either by text or by phone, but keep them in the loop, okay? This stops the problems here that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. And then find a solution for keeping pets out of the work area. And then you're gonna have a discussion with your team, where or how can we avoid this situation in the future? So the team's gonna come up with this idea. Well, let's add a step to the sales process. Discuss how a construction site works. So this is, if you're reading into this, you could create a document that you share with the Smiths during the sales process that says, here's how a construction site works. And you lay it out as a flowchart. Easy to understand. Doesn't matter what educational background you have or to understand how to read drawings or not. It's a flowchart. I'm going to show them how a construction site works. By the way, for those of you who want to increase the amount of sales you make when you're selling residential deals, if you're pitching your company on Tuesday and you do whatever you do, and then I come in on Wednesday and I pitch my company and I show a very nice flow chart and I show the Smiths how a construction site works, and then I have a flow chart for how installation goes, and I have a flow chart. What do you think the Smiths are going to think about my company versus yours? It is an incredibly powerful tool when you show them how a construction site works. In there, on that flow chart, it says homeowners to vacate the property during this phase of installation or demolition or whatever it is. It's there, it's written in black and white. It must be true. I need you out of the property so we can take out the hot water tank, so we can remove the countertop, blah, 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 whatever it is. It's there, right? So this is the solution that came from talking to the good people on your team around the table. That's it right there. It's our job to educate the customer. Remember earlier in this meeting, I said they don't know how to have their hot water tank replaced. They don't know how to have their house painted. They don't know how to re-roof their house. I know how. And so I'm going to show them, I'm going to educate them on that. And then the other solution is put RAM board. It's called cardboard, cardboard rolls. There's different brand names for it in different parts of the world and in the country, but just buy RAM board to put down on the floors of the work area from the front door and make this part of our how a construction site works checklist or flowchart, right? Allows my crews to keep their boots on, but keeps our customers' house protected. The carpet and the hardwood doesn't get scratched up, right? People get very finicky about those things, and as they should, right? They're going to live with those scratches and they're going to see them every day. The cost per roll is $100 for that carpet, but is it worth it? Absolutely, because in this case, the time savings was $480 plus $260 plus a bad house review. So that's a profit leak of $740 plus a bad review, and you've just solved it for the future, at least, by doing this worksheet. That is the start for you of fixing the wrong customer and wrong job leaks. All good so far? So let's go to our closing exercise. I'm going to stop sharing so I can switch screens with your team around the table. Stick with me. Let's do this one closing exercise because it's like a mini profit lab where you're going to get feedback from your team sitting around you on what to do about what we've learned today. Give me 1 sec. I'm just going to share screen here. I'm going to change screens. I'll go here. And we'll advance the slides. All right, so this is the famous start, stop, continue exercise. How do we capture our wrong customer, wrong job leaks? So right now in your books with your pen and paper, please answer the following questions. Based on what you learned today about the leaks that we have in our construction business, around having the wrong customer or the wrong job, what are you going to start doing differently? So write that in that left column. Now, in the middle column, I want you to also take a stab at how much money or time you're going to save or you're currently wasting and you need a solution for. Write that down. How much are we going to save or make? And then next to that, I'm going to challenge you one more time. Give me a solution. What's the first step we can take to fix that? Now, for those of you sitting around the table who are going to be giving your suggestions to the owner, please understand every suggestion is valuable and appreciated. We may not act on every one because there's other things going on in the business that you might not be aware of. I don't know what they are, but I know there are always other things going on. So please, if the business owner is not taking your suggestion, it's not that they don't respect your input or advice. It's just that they have an other list going in their head or on paper that has many other things on it. So please continue to give your good ideas forward. They're all going on the list, and at some point, they're going to get dealt with. But there's always an order of operations, right? You don't ice the cake until you bake the cake, that kind of thing. So icing is delicious. We all love it, and you've got great ideas for icing, and I appreciate that. It just might not be the right time for icing now. So please keep working with the owner on coming up with these great ideas, but understand that the owner has another side list that they're working on of other priorities as well. And then our job as a team is to make sure we help the owner with those other side lists to get it done. Owner, it's your job to share that list with everybody else. So you say, this is what we're working on first, and we're going to work on it until it's closed. Then we'll move on to item 2, 3, and 4. That make sense? Okay. So what's our start, stop, and continue? I'd like you to finish this exercise with your leadership team around the table and make sure you take some actions from that. The next thing I'd like to ask is to make sure that you are active in the Facebook group. It's a closed group. And what that means is this. It means everybody else in that group is like you. They may not be in the same industry, but they are of the same mindset as you. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about how they can work smarter, not just harder. And so when you post wins or comments or questions in there, you're getting answers back for sure. That's good for you, but you're also giving your good thoughts back out into the group. And that just adds up over time. So what you do is really appreciated. So make sure you're communicating inside the Facebook group so you get the most out of this session. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you sticking with me today on this one. You can see how big of a deal wasted efforts is, or wrong customer, wrong job leak is in your business and the impact that it can have. So I want to see you go and fix those. All right. Tell us your success stories. I look forward to hearing it. Thanks, everybody.